It's Don here from the board. Thanks for coming along and checking out this video. So, what am I going to be doing today? In this video is probably the start of the disassembly and the desoldering of my VEA clone bought from Taobao. So let's switch down onto the desktop and have a look at what we're talking about. So this board here that I've got just the old keycaps from my Philco with the front facing sort of ninja caps was the $100 Australian VEA clone with Gateron Reds that I bought from Taobao. I did a review of earlier and so forth, and you know, it's been not too bad. It's a bit different to get used to because obviously when you type with a split keyboard, you know, you have to think about your comfort levels and positions and things like that. It's nothing terribly difficult about it except for just getting used to having it in a split keyboard formation. Now, because the bottom row is a little bit different in that there's a 2U there, and then a 1U, and the 3U, and then the 1, 2, 5s, you can see I've got a bit of a mix of some keycap profiles there to actually make that work. But I tend to find that just where my hands are positioned, I'm actually hitting that 1U for my spacebar because I use my left hand. The other thing that I've kind of been a little bit annoyed about is that the shift on this left side is a bit mushy. It doesn't sort of spring back as cleanly as some of the other keys, especially because the right shift is a very short shift. I think that's a 175. It comes back and it's very springy, as it should be. So what I'm planning to do is I'm actually going to do a switch swap with some Box Jades. Now, because this is actually a plate design, the Box Jades will work because I don't need them to be PCB mounted. And also, in the middle of doing that, I'm planning to swap the layers because we discovered that the actual layer order is incorrect in that the switch top opening, though it technically doesn't matter for the Jade switches, were incorrect. Now, of course, if I was to swap that for a different type of switch that actually allowed switch top opening, then you know that would be of an advantageous decision to do, but I'm not, so it doesn't really matter. So of course I'm not going to do this live stream. I'm just going to do it as I've got bits of time to pull it apart, to desolder it, to resolder it, and hopefully I'll still have a working keyboard afterwards. I suppose even if I don't, it'll be a learning experience, and sure, it's $100 kind of down the drain if I kill the PCB, but it's not as bad as if I spent, say, $500, $600, $700, that kind of thing. So hopefully you'll enjoy watching me speed through the process of pulling this apart and then putting it back together again. And we'll see you at the end part of this video where we can test out and hear what it sounds like with some Box Jades. I guess before I sort of finish this first part, we should probably just have a bit of a quick sound test and check to see what it sounds like with the Reds, since I'll probably keep these same keycaps on it to start with. Oh, sorry about that. So there you go. They do have O-rings under these keycaps, by the way, so that's why they do have a bit of that dampened sound and not so much of a harsh bottoming out. So we'll see you at the end of the deconstruction and reconstruction. And we're back. So that took about 2.5 or so hours all up, just in bits and pieces and parts, as you might have seen as part of that time lapse, in completely taking apart the VEA clone, desoldering the switches, putting in new switches, reassembling it, and so on and so forth. Now, one of the things that I had hoped to do with this was that I was going to rearrange the plates so that this clear plate that was at the top was actually going to be underneath the black plate, because the black plate had switch opening in it. Turns out that was not possible, because what had happened was that whoever had designed the actual black layer plate had their stabilizer portion for the stabilized switches flipped around 180, and it doesn't actually match the PCB. So if you tried to actually use that layer at the other position where the clear layer is that the board came in, it doesn't actually work. The stabilizer bar doesn't actually fit in there. So it's a little bit disappointing, and of course it meant I had to go back to the original configuration, which has the clear plate on top with the non-openable switch tops. Not that it technically matters, because I've put in these Box Jades, and the Box Jades aren't switch openable anyway in a traditional sense that I'm aware of, because the tools don't go in there and they don't open that way. So, you know, it feels really nice. I do like the Jades for what they are, but I still have to build something with my Box Navies. There's a lot more tactility, obviously, because of the thicker click bar, and there's also the click, which I like, compared to the Reds. Now, this is also the first time that I've clipped the stabilizers, so I've actually clipped the bottoms of the stabilizers, and I don't know if that's part of the reason why the stabilizers are moving much better now, because previously they were actually really stiff and mushy, but the mushy is really more of a bottom out issue than anything else. And I also put some lube, so it's the first time I've actually lubed my stabilizers on any keyboards as well. So it's quite extensive in regards to what I've done this time round, and I'm looking forward to typing a bit more on it and using it. Now, what I've done is, because it's quite flat, on the bottom it comes with these rubber feet, these silicone pads, but I've actually put a thick bump on as well on it. So if I just tilt that up, you can see the height difference there, and so that'll give me a bit extra angle, because I do prefer to have a bit of an angle on the keyboards that I type on. So it's not very much, but I think, you know, if I swap this key set out with, say, an SA key set that's fully sculpted, it'll give me a little bit more of that experience that I normally get from having an angled keyboard. So, of course, in completeness, now I'm not going to switch test it on this video, because I've already done that after I finished putting all the caps on it and everything's fine, but I will of course do the complete sound, I suppose, test, because at the first half before the time-lapse bit, I believe I took some audio of typing on it, so we can hear the difference between on what it sounds like with the Gateron Reds to now the Box Jades. So let's just drop the microphone and do a bit of typing. Perhaps not so much typing as just random button mashing, but you kind of get the idea. It is actually a really pleasant sound. Now, because they're exactly the same keycaps and nothing's changed, they still have the O-rings that they had on before, it's a relatively good sound comparison. So yeah, there you go. Nice, and I suppose relatively simple switch swap. The only thing that I did find that was amusing was that actually underneath these LEDs is a laser cut out fox with 3 tails on it, where the LEDs actually poke through. Kind of held that up briefly as part of the time lapse, so you can always zip back and try and find the frames that will show that. I don't know why they didn't carry that design through onto the top plates, but it does kind of seem like the cobbled black and clear plates were from 2 different keyboard designs, and that would account for the fact that you've actually got flipped stabilizer positions on the different layers. So But that's okay. Overall, it still works. It still plugs together. It still turns on. It still types. It still sounds great with these Jades in it. So yeah, maybe next week I'll take them into work and see how they go, and hopefully not annoy my co-workers. So that's it for this video. Thanks very much for checking it out. You can, see what it takes to actually pull apart and resolder, swap out some switches without hot swaps and so forth. Of course, please share this for anybody who might be interested in using a VEA clone available from Taobao. It was about $100 Australian plus shipping, and then of course swapping your own switches in will add the cost of the extra switches that you're going to be replacing the ones that come with. So yeah, thanks again, and of course, until next time, happy clacking.